Okay, which Muppet movies have you seen?
I've seen the pirate one.
Muppet Treasure Island with Tim Curry. Very
Yes,
important.
yes. Definitely seen that one. And
Christmas Carol?
oh, yeah,
Muppets
yeah,
Take
yeah,
Manhattan?
actually. Wait. Damn it, now I'm muddled. Is there like another Christmas thing where like Fraggles and Muppets and everyone are in?
I believe so. It's not the Muppets Christmas Carol, because that's
Okay,
just a straight retelling of the Dickens.
gotcha.
Muppets Take Manhattan, also great.
Okay, so today I am talking with my friend George. I've known and worked with George for ages. I met him through the Rocky Horror Picture Show. His wife, Tracy, became my boss when I joined the security team, and then I took over for her as head of security when she broke off. And in the midst of all that, he was making short films and like YouTube comedy series projects. And at some point, we were at the same comic convention, I think New York, or maybe it was San Diego. Then in the same panel, sort of had this light bulb moment for the first comic that we worked on. I think the exact click where they were talking heavily about zombie comics and like the rise of horror comics and it becoming oversaturated at that point. And George and I then had like a 2-hour breakdown afterwards of like, well, what's the opposite of zombies? Okay, zombies. Everyone's dying and it's terrible. So nobody's dying and that's still terrible. And that led to our book Healed that we made, which was our first co-project. But I'm looking forward to unpack what he's doing now, how the convention system has treated us as we've sort of like branched out into our different specialities within it. He's also a metal musician, so I'm sure he has other concepts that he can add to conversation.
That sounds really cool. How have I not met this person yet?
When I met you, I think it was me and Bert talking about tarot stuff, and you were just kind of floating there at the first time we met. So
Oh
there
yeah,
was
I
no,
was exhausted and I just needed to like lean against their shoulder for a little bit.
George has no tarot knowledge at all, so he would never have jumped into that chat. Like, he gets comic readers who are a very different crowd than art fans, who talking to them about stuff tends to meander weirdly. So our conversations don't tend to crisscross heavily.
Well,
So
I will certainly make a point of saying hi to him next time.
yeah. No, but this conversation is definitely going to be the trick of how do we go back into topics we've probably talked about dozens of times without making anyone who listens to this later feel like they missed a chunk.
Alienation of the audience. Everybody's
Yeah.
worst fear.
There's a little bit of a familiarity that we're going to try to have to reiterate. I feel like there's going to be a lot of sentences that start with, I know we've talked about this before.
Well, that's what editing is for.
True. He has a lot more of a business-minded approach to all this stuff, which I have always sort of lacked. Like, he actually keeps up a mailing list. He's actually gotten really good at, like, making Kickstarter a regular process in his comic creating, where, like, he now just has a list of people through every campaign who follow him from comic to comic, which I've rarely seen anyone be able to pull off with Kickstarter, so it's kind of fascinating. Yeah, I don't
Business
know.
expertise sounds helpful to hear about.
Yes, he definitely has a lot more of that than I do.
Cool. I promised my friends that I would get them a breakdown of a couple different scenes by this evening, so I should go do that. Let me know how the conversation goes.
And take your time with that, because like I said, this one will run a little longer, so expect more like an hour, hour and a half.
Sounds good.
How you doing, George?
I am doing all right. I think, like a lot of people, I could use a nap.
I just did a one-day New York City trip, so yeah, I'm definitely napping once we're done with our chit-chat.
Yeah. My brain did the 5:30. Hey, let's think about things. Like, no, oh, we're so close to getting the full sleep I wanted. Brains are dumb. Yeah, of all the things, I'm like, if I bought Apple stock in 1992, how much would it be worth now? And then I just started just fantasizing about like, oh, that'd be great, right? You just place the bets where you need to, you invest where you need to, and then you can just do whatever the hell you want.
Honestly, I would be a liar if I said I haven't had the thoughts. But because it's me, I'm like, just in case time travel is a thing, or like this is a simulation and I do get bumped back at some point, I'm trying to actively note what I can use as actionable.
Well, I don't know if I've ever told you this story. When my freshman year in college was in Occidental, which was just outside of LA,
Mm.
And in my Econ 101 class was a very young Ben Affleck.
Oh shit.
At that time, he was only the basketball player from the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie
Yes.
who does the here, take it, and gives the
Yep.
ball to Perry. So so the fantasy is often like there's the sliding doors. Like, oh man, if I knew then, like,
Right.
I'd probably be an alcoholic and like a crippling gambling addiction. But often that is and then I get in with the Affleck and Damon, and like now we're a trio type of thing. But then last night it was if I'm going back in time, like rather than enter like the Hollywood machine that was 1992, which was much worse than it is now, and it's pretty horrible now. I'm like, or I could just make bets and like
Yeah.
just not do anything.
Or just do vanity projects with all the fucking flood of cash.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the all right, if I had $10,000 in 1992, what property could I have bought, like put a down payment on in LA? And what would that be worth now?
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think we just came up with the premise of your next comic book.
It's got some sort of time travel to become Damon and Affleck's friend. That's actually, when you think about it, that's not a bad premise.
In the title is so easy. My friend Affleck. It's just obvious enough with that nice little hook of people walking by being like, huh? And you getting that nice moment of, I'll explain.
Yeah. Yeah. It falls apart once you start poking it with logic.
Yeah.
But it'd be fucking fun.
But you got Vampires on Mars still rolling, yeah?
Yes. Yeah. 3, we wrapped it up. The Kickstarter's wrapped up. It's a combination of waiting for the rewards, the books to roll in, while prepping 4 for most likely June. And then we will have wrapped my first Kickstarter series.
That's amazing.
Not my first Kickstarter, my first series I have backed through Kickstarter.
You have gotten a good handle on how to make the Kickstarter machine work in like building a following almost of an audience inside of that metric.
There's still bigger nuts to crack, rungs to climb up, and more to learn. I mean, God, man, I think we talked about it. 15 years ago, I just wanted to make a comic book with you. And in those 15 years, I have gained so many other skills and insights and tools. And I just wanted to make a comic. And now I can talk to you about Kickstarters and Facebook ads and bleeds and, all this stuff, all this ancillary. And I guess it's not ancillary because I use them.
Right.
I'm learning them. Like, I am an active student of this stuff, but it all just poured from, I don't want to tell a funny book. It blows me away sometimes.
It's one of those things that I keep running into creators who like, oh, I have this passion project. I just like fucking around in this medium. And then once somebody nudges them towards publishing or monetization, immediately the changeover of what skills you have to then absorb, the other roles you have to embody. It's getting more interesting as I'm talking to people now who jumped into it because people pushed them, got overloaded and realized that they can't live in that world and they just want to go back to making the dumb little thing and like having 8 people like it than trying to sell it and trying to unpack themselves from each of those other aspects and like get back to roots, because you can't just leave. You have to like disconnect at each level at a weird way, like otherwise you get this weird whiplash where you can't re-engage the process well.
Yeah, dude, if you get any insights, let me know, because I mean, pretty much I'm sure all of this is just stemmed from a fear of death. And like the closest thing you can get to immortality is like story. I don't take that as a positive motivator. I'm sure some people take the fear of death and somehow they amalgamate that into like positive energy, and that's how they keep going.
I think I have figured that out, but
Yeah,
we,
I haven't cracked that alchemy yet. It still feels negative.
yeah,
And you know, there's enough negativity out there, man. I don't want to be fueled by it. Like, yeah, there are some people who are fueled off of spite, right? and they get stuff done. That's kind of their fuel, or maybe that's their ignition. And
right.
then once the ball gets rolling, and I keep smashing metaphors into each other, then you know, the more positive parts roll from it. But yeah, spite has never been like a motivator. It's never gotten my motor running faster.
You have a very tangled relationship with it, where I've always tried to like push the idea of optimistic nihilism, where like nihilism, the universe is big and I am small, so I can affect nothing, and that sucks, so fuck it. And that's nihilism. And then optimistic nihilism is the universe is big and I am small, and I can affect almost nothing except these things, so this is what matters, and fuck everything else. And because I live there, I seem to have a little bit more positive with the momentum mori of like, look, I'm going to be here this long. No one's going to remember me 50 years after I'm gone, so let me just enjoy this and make these people's lives better, and I'm going to make some fun shit, and hopefully 20 years after I'm dead, someone sees it and goes, oh, I'm going to make something based on my enjoyment of this, and then neat, I've thrown it into the future, and hopefully the ripple keeps moving.
Yeah, it's what side of the coin of nothing matters.
Yeah.
Fall on. Is nothing matters crushing, or is nothing matters freeing?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think I'm sliding closer to that.
I've been dragging you kicking and screaming towards it for years.
Oh yeah, and you know, when you sit down and you analyze it, you know, you turn it into like an equation. It makes perfect sense. But we all have our own wiring and experiences and lived experiences that, thanks to the power of therapy, we're trying to undo and untangle.
So you've been doing the normal work of comic creating, and then the hard work of making that a not loss.
Yeah, my goal, and again, like, I gotta all praise to Tracy. She knew who she was marrying, and there's never been one negative vibe from her towards any of this. And unfortunately, I think we both know friends who have gotten negative feedback from the people who supposedly support them the most. And I can honestly say Tracy's never, not like, seriously, not once.
No, especially, I mean, we knew each other through the Rocky Horror crowd back in the day, and like so many people from that had these great creative arcs that got crushed by marrying somebody who just did not want that sort of energy or looseness or uncertainty around them. Yeah.
So I feel like the two things I can repay Tracy the most: one, acknowledge it and let her know that I see it and appreciate it. And number two is don't take advantage of it.
I've seen other people ruin shit just from that.
Which means, how do I make these things and she can still get Chinese food whenever she wants? You know, if Logan needs a new pair of jeans, he can get a new pair of jeans. You know, can we go on a vacation? You know, that type of thing.
Right.
And you know, I guess that leads back to learning about Kickstarter and learning about all these different things that Diana, our friend Diana,
I'm very much looking forward to talking to her later on this.
One of the earlier Kickstarters, maybe like the second or third like serious Kickstarter I did. And by serious, I mean I had put time into learning the system and the platform and the mechanics of it. She brought up a great point that, you know, look at it as subsidizing.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not at a place yet where at the end of a campaign, all the art has been paid off, all the books have been paid off, and all that stuff. I'm taking a chunk out of that, and then I'm investing in inventory, and, you know, we go to conventions together. So it's a very long tail about it all. But again, it's being realistic of where I'm at, so then I can set. I know I want to be 100 yards down the field, and that's not going to happen in one Kickstarter. How can I get 2-3 yards down the field? you know,
Yeah.
which builds something.
Work, but you doing the thing of like building brick by brick is the thing that nobody really glamorizes or teaches
Nope.
or points at. Sometimes they'll point at the work, but usually is like a romanticized version of the work.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't see the in the trenches work. I picked up a guitar at 15 because I was blown away by guitar players. I was like, that looks cool. I want to do that. And the minute you put a guitar in your hand and you try and play and it's just a cat dying an agonizing death, you realize how hard it is to make it look easy.
Yeah. Sorry, I was having a conversation with someone recently about the Dunning-Kruger effect of like, you have to be a certain level of intelligence to realize that you're not intelligent.
Right.
And like, I wonder if creatives, because I run into this less with creative people than not, and I wonder if this is why, where like, because you have to experience the failure of learning a technique where you glamorize the outcome already and figured out how these gaps exist through your own initiative, that maybe that's why that populates less in those communities. It's not, there's not an immunity. Like, there's some people who have it still, but
yeah, man, I don't know. Guitar playing, I mean, that started when I was like 15. So, I mean, I guess there's no better thing than not knowing and just trying. You're risking nothing.
The old Adventure Time quote of the first step of getting good at something is being really bad at it.
Yes. Yeah. And
I think I said that wrong, but everyone knows it.
And I saw some, quote or something like, first you suck, then you're slow, then you're good. It's a long fucking journey.
Yeah.
The Ira Glass has a great quote out there. It's not as good as you want it to be. That's because you have taste. And so you know where you want the thing to go, but you don't have the skills yet, but you have the taste. So keep working, and eventually the skills will catch up to the taste.
There's a common glitch. I first really encountered this when working on comics with you. You're starting a project like that where it's sequential or there's a lot of pieces to it, and the quality of the last page compared to the quality of the first page, because you've learned and grown and built a system that you had never engaged with much before, and the quality goes up and up and up, and then you get to the end and you can see the gap so clearly in that one flip that it's palpably painful.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, I still give you so much credit with Healed, that when we came to that stopping point and looked behind and you clocked that, that you dove back in and you redid the first story. And that's I don't know, that's professionalism, dedication, care. I don't know what exact word ties into that, but I know not everyone would have done that. And there's a line, right? Like, at some point, you just got to push the thing out the door.
Yeah.
And you roll all those learnings and experiences into the next thing, and you hope the next thing is a little better. And I think I've been telling myself that for a while, so I can listen to those earlier band recordings where, on the one hand, I listen to it now, and I'm like, oh, good God. But, I try and be kind to 22-year-old George, like he was doing the best he could. And sometimes that's it. Like, give yourself permission to suck and just do the best you can.
I mean, I think this is one of the things that not being successful is beneficial for, because you don't have the George Lucas thing of like looking back in that moment and then feeling you have the resources and power to go back and redo it in a weird way. This way you just have to accept it and move on to the next thing.
All right, it's funny you say that, because in my basement, I have the original, like, reel-to-reel recordings that my band in 1995, 96 recorded on. Like, I've got those reels.
That's amazing.
And there was a moment I was like, well, with I have grown, and even as a producer and an engineer, and I use those words very loosely, it's like, well, what if we digitize this and I take everything I know, and it's like, those kids, those young adults, they did the best they could. in the moment, I don't think there's any polishing that's going to take a 2.5 and bring it up to a 7. You know, I know people who they're kind of using the same songs from 30 years ago, but now I've rethought it. I'm like, you just like let that dog lie
And take
and
the
like,
inspiration and make a new thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Like I've dealt with this more in the manufacturing process that I've been going through, where like you meet people who have one good idea, and then you have people who have a good idea, and I'm trying to get this one done so I can get to the next one.
yeah. Early 2000s, I was working with writer, producer, director. His name's Kevin Anderton. For about 10 years, we did a ton of short films together.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I remember a
I don't
specific.
think I know about this.
No? Okay. I remember a specific conversation we had that he was talking about that, the friend with one movie idea, one short idea, and they just couldn't let it go. And Kevin and I are sitting on dozens and dozens of ideas. And so we're like, yeah, God willing, someone hear one of these ideas and want to cash in the lottery ticket. So this is 2000. The word sold out meant more
Yeah.
then. So transport back 25 years ago, we'll sell that one thing so we can make all these others.
Right.
Because, and you talk to any creator worth their salt, ideas are cheap.
Yeah.
It's execution, it's follow through, it's dedication.
Well,
It's craft.
It's that thing where like anytime a good version of something of an idea comes out, you usually can also simultaneously find like 4 or 5 other people who had the same idea around the same time and just didn't pull it off the same way.
Yep.
Also, where you get that thing with movies where like 2 movies with the same kind of premise come out simultaneously just because the zeitgeist works like that.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, my deathbed regret will be that there was never enough time and never enough burners on the stove
Yeah.
for all the ideas.
Nope. I think that's the one reason we get along as well as we do. Because we just both have a ton of stuff that we like mashing together and see what little idea babies happen.
Yeah. And then, I also think about Mel Brooks. And I wish I could remember exactly, maybe it was Men in Tights, but he was talking about having like 2 or 3 ideas moving through the studio system. And how did you end up choosing this one? It's like, well, because the other 2 were plugged up and this one was moving. So I was like, well, let's just do that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there is an unromantic part of that, but that's very practical and that gets you to done.
Yeah.
A 75% done project is worth more than a perfect idea.
I mean, this is how we ended up on Healed to begin with, wasn't it? That you had, I know you eventually shot the first story in Healed as like a short film, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but I think you had a lot of these ideas where you were originally like thinking of them in the video format, and then you're like, well, yeah, but I can't get a rigging for this, I can't get the special effects for that. But comics are a medium where me and one other person, we can just sit down and make this story happen anyway.
Yeah, it was you and I, New York Comic Con. It was Oni Press, and they're like, how not to break into comics. And as they were talking, this light bulb kept getting brighter and brighter. The web series that I and Tracy and a whole bunch of people were doing.
Oh, wait, 664?
Yeah, 664, The Neighbor of the Beast. Tracy was pregnant with Logan. So for about 2.5, 3 years, I was directing, producing, writing, editing almost all of these web series. And this is, when web series were 5 to 7 minutes each.
Yep.
And we shot 2 seasons, 34 episodes total, I think. And it was a lot of, I got to write the script so we can shoot the script, so I can edit the script, so I can put the episode up, so I can write the script, so I can, I was chasing my tail for 2.5, 3 years, and I was wrangling the cats. And by the end of the second season of 664, I was like, I think I'm done. The idea of like trying to shoot something again, that gas tank was empty.
Right.
Empty. And the rule of thumb, with especially short film, especially DIY short film, don't shoot what you can't film. So don't shoot a pirate movie if you don't have access to a pirate ship.
Gotcha.
That's why 664, 75% of it took place at my house.
Yeah.
Because I owned it. Sitting in that Oni panel with you, that was the light bulb of, you bring the right artist who's digging, what you want to do, you can write that pirate comic. So that reignited my passion / hopes to tell stories.
Yeah.
And
God, now your catalog is amazing.
Every now and then I got to remember to kind of like step away from the table and just look at it and remember, 15 years ago, it was one 24-page book that was on the table. Now it's 4 completed graphic novels, 2 anthologies, and Vampires on Mars, a new series that I'm working on. That I got 8 or 9 things on that table.
And honestly, the amount of variety, because I see a lot of people who have like multiple series, but they're all sort of like different versions of the same song.
Yeah. And I'm not 100% sure why that's what I went, because again, you got to kind of go to rule of thumb. They'll say like, pick a lane, stay in it, build your audience, right? So
right.
If you're a horror guy, you hit that horror thing. If you're a sci-fi, hit that. If you're if you're LGBT slice of life, hit that, hit that note over and over again, build your audience. I get that. And I have seen those people.
Yeah.
You grow as artists, grow as businesses, grow as audience support. That's never been my MO.
Yeah.
So I chase the idea that I want to see.
I think that's why we click so hard, is because we both make things that we want to buy and can't find.
Yeah, that's definitely, the ideas definitely start with something that makes me go, huh. And hopefully, and at some point, as I keep poking, that, huh, I will hit the, well, if I don't see this, I'm going to get really, really mad. There's some ideas that I'm still poking at. I'm like, yeah, that could be cool. And then there's like this one-shot comic that I'm poking at, and I am at the point with it where like I love this main character so much. I am going to find a way to tell this story because I gotta get her into the world.
Heck yeah.
It is an 80s comic about a 16-year-old girl in respectfully buttfuck North Carolina on the worst day of her life in 1986 when her local arcade closes.
Oh my God, I already love where this is starting.
And, the real story is those moments that we all go through when a major pillar of our life changes. Right? Like that could be someone moving away, that could be your parents selling your house, and it just so happens for this girl, this arcade has been her safe haven for the last 5 years. In a world where she does not feel like she fits in, she had this one place. How, what are the feelings that go into the last day of your safe haven?
Oh.
And her name is Cass. You can call her Cassie. Don't ever call her Cassandra. And I love her to death. The fact that I've shared the outline with a couple people, specifically some of the women in my life.
Yeah.
And the fact that all 3 of them told me, well, you made me cry. I'm like, good. Here are the 2 projects we've talked about. The sliciest slice of life. And I'm also running a Kickstarter about vampire astronauts. being shot into Mars, right? Like, and God willing, someone in the near future will walk up to my table, see those two books next to each other,
and then leave with both of them.
You hope so. And I will say, if we want to go on the business side a bit, like I said, the rule of thumb is like, pick a lane, stick in it, hit that note. What I've got going for me is if anybody is willing to slow down and talk to us, right, when we're together, I can ask them, what mood are you in right now?
Yeah.
Do you do you want something that's going to make you laugh, break your heart, think? Are you looking for something sci-fi? Do you want something, a little more grounded? And if I can learn where they're at, I can point them to something.
Yeah, no, one of my favorite bits is when you started doing the like, what are you watching right now? Like, what's the like show or movie or world that you're playing? No. And then whatever they said, you had I've got this that lives next door.
Yes. Yeah. I don't have any superhero stuff. So when someone's like, I'm a big Marvel fan, I'm a big DC fan, I can go, all right, big characters, punchy kicky. Here's a story about an ass-kicking Santa Claus.
I knew it was going to be that one.
Right? Yeah. And what it all comes down to is I've got more ways to break down people's barriers.
Yeah.
And God knows we have talked about it because, again, I mean, we could try and figure out that's a minimum of 30 to 40 shows we have been next to each other.
Minimum.
And we have seen the carnival barkers, right? Like the people who don't care about the people at the show. They want your money.
Yeah.
And we both have that negative feeling about those people. I don't have that mercenary DNA.
No, neither do I. Merc thing,
I want to sell my books.
Yeah.
I want to go home with less than I brought. I want to grow my audience. I want to make more money at these things. I also want the person walking away excited to read the thing they just bought. I don't want them buying it to shut me up so they can go about the rest of their day. And Lord knows we have seen purchases that were done solely like it is worth my $20 to get away from you. Right?
No, one of my favorite things about tabling next to you is every year I get to watch the people who like punch you down, find you and go, there you are. So I was telling my friend, and I wanted to see what new thing you had this time, blah, 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 blah. And like, it's wonderful.
It is very cool. And, again, I got my own ego. I've got my own, negative self-talk and all that stuff. So being at these shows can be a roller coaster, can be tough when you see other people just banging it out, right and center. And there are shows where you and we are doing our damnedest, but it's a fight. It is a flat out fight. And sometimes those shows, about halfway through, we'll look at each other and realize we cannot control this. There's nothing we can do right now other than like work to keep our sanity. So this really hit home going back to shows after COVID. Having whatever that was, the 9 months or a year where we didn't have any shows, and we missed, and some of the ones that were canceled were the ones like shows that we've been doing for almost as long as we've been doing this.
Yeah.
And we have found those regulars that we've gone. And I know I had a very deep appreciation of how special that stuff was. I will always go to, I'm not going to name them because they didn't, but I call them my New Hampshire family.
Yep. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. They found our table, and it was our book baby. That, I think the daughter fell in love with, and just flat out, we gave them a good experience. They hung out with us for 10 or 15 minutes. They enjoyed the interaction. They bought the book. They came back the next year looking for us. And so we'd seen them for, whatever that was, 3 years or whatever. COVID hits, right? And then I'm like, oh God, I hope they're okay.
Right, yeah.
And then that starts expanding about all these other people who have come by. And so we get back to the shows, seeing them come around the corner, with the, you're here. And I'm like, you're here. And everybody's okay. And, for about a year and a half, as we basically went back to our routine, like it really brought home how special that stuff is. And then, maybe on a little more of the mercenary level, like I said, you and I have had so many of these discussions about how we act and interact and how we want to define our success. That, like, that family turning the corner and their eyes going wide because they found us.
And the smile, yeah. Honestly, my favorite moments at these shows are like, both of us have our heads down, there's a little bit of a lull, and in the peripheral vision, I see one of those families coming that I know you haven't seen yet, and I get to turn and wait for your reaction.
Yeah. And that's real, right? And that is the proof that the way we want to conduct business works. Again, that might sound very mercenary, but I think I've also babbled on of how all the different equations you and I are juggling at these shows.
Yeah.
How do you want to be successful?
Right. Like, what metric are you using on that?
Right.
I think it was an early Baltimore show that I've referenced this in our conversations before, but it was that one where I was still pretty early on, like, doing con sketches. I didn't really have a big print library. I was just next to you and we were doing the books. And next to me on the other side was the guy with the tower of just like books and books and books of prints. And people are just like mechanically every 5-10 minutes, somebody else walks up, flips through the books, leaves with a print or two. And I'm getting more and more depressed as the time goes on. And someone had come up and had me do like a commission or a quick sketch of something. And then you just lean over and go, yeah, that guy's selling a lot of stuff, but nobody's left his booth skipping. And it was just like that little click in my head of like, right, I shouldn't, like, wrong metric to compare myself against.
Yeah. And it's tough. It is, the same conversation I've had with myself is, people who I would consider peers. Like, we started writing comics around the same area. And I've got some friends now who are writing, Batman backup stories, are writing Superman short stories. I have that knee-jerk, fuck it, jealousy reaction of they're doing it right, I'm doing it wrong. Because I'm not getting those opportunities. Then I have to, get out of the boo-boo face zone and remind myself that that's not my path. I started telling my own stories because I had my own stories I wanted to tell.
Right.
10-year-old George 100% got into comics because of the X-Men.
Right.
51-year-old George does not have an X-Men story. I don't have this Wolverine story I've been dying to tell. I do have, I think, what would be a really cool Doctor Strange, like an annual, like a one-shot. But so again, that's not me.
Right.
I want to tell my own stories. My path is closer to Robert Kirkman and The Walking Dead and Invincible. The independent long-term story.
Yep.
It's your story told over 150 issues. That's where ultimately I want to go. That's where my heart and passion and over dramatic wants to go. So, that is my struggle. That I'm constantly working on. reminding myself of what I'm trying to do, and the other person's success, is not a reflection on me. And I don't know if you remember this or you blacked it out, because I wouldn't blame you. The random New York show we did, I don't know, 5 years into doing this thing.
Yeah.
We were right next to a guy who was just carnival barking and hard.
Oh, that's the guy I picture whenever we talk about carnival barking mercs.
Because that's who I picture.
Yeah.
And yes, by Sunday he had sold out his entire run, and who knows how many books that was. He left early because they sold everything.
Yep.
It was one of our worst shows because of the way he conducted himself. People would, because again, if you remember, we were right
next to him.
People were like going way around our area of the con to get away from him.
Yeah, because by the time they would get to our table, he was already yelling at them, which then made them veer left away from us completely.
Yep, either step further away from our section of tables, or if they did get sucked in and they did give him $20 to shut him up, they like blew past us. They were fucking done.
Yeah.
And they were not going to risk talking to anybody else.
Yep. No, that was the nightmare option.
I have no doubt he walked away with 10, 20, maybe 100 times more than what we made that weekend. But he's an asshole.
The takeaway I always have is, at no show that he ever goes to will anyone ever come around the corner and be like, "Good, you're here."
Yeah.
He'll never have that experience that you get with the New Hampshire family or that whole thing. Like, anyone who knows he's there, like, he'll get one sale that one time and never get that person twice.
And I don't know if he would remember somebody who bought something from him.
Not likely at all. He talked. He didn't listen.
Yes. Because, again, if you remember, or you may have blacked this out, he had a script, and he stuck to the script.
We could do his pitch by the end of that weekend.
There was no conversation. If he asked about you, it was premeditated because that's what the script called for.
Yeah, and it was definitely an easy yes or no that he could just bounce left or right on. It wasn't like, tell me about you.
Yeah. And when I think back about that, you got to do that internal diagnostic. Am I willing to do that? Am I willing to be that person to sell 10, 20, 100 times more? And it physically makes me nauseous.
Yeah, I don't have it in me. It's just the grossest thing I can think of.
No, so, then I will...
It's the opposite of my optimistic nihilism thing. Like, it just works in complete antithesis to it.
Yeah, and okay, and now if we want to, jump ahead 10 years, we want to talk about right now. I know one of my like big universal grossness is realizing how many different people and institutions and organizations treat you like an ATM.
Yeah.
You are something to have money or time extracted from.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's how they look at you. That is, you are not a human being. You are an ATM machine.
This is one of my big gripes with the con system, and I haven't done this rant. It's been a while since I've tried to put this idea out there, and now we're here, and I'm taking this shot. It frustrates me to no end, because we've worked at conventions that have more respect for Artist Alley, for creators, for independents, and some, as they've gone more corpo, and like different bigger organizations buy up the smaller shows. As independent creators, our buying tables up front funds a lot of the other setup. Yet, we're never part of the consideration for promotion, foot traffic, trying to find ways to steer people in. The companies think this way. We're like, they want all of us to pay for the tables, and they think they're entitled to that money too. Like they get weirdly upset if they're not meeting their minimums on that, where they get like aggressive and strange. And then they take that money that we've invested so that we can get access to their audience, but they don't steer the audience towards us because they have contract minimums that they have to pay certain guests.
Yeah.
So the celebrities that they're using to promote the show, they have to spend all their marketing monies promoting those autograph things, the photography options of like 10 to 30-second interactions with these celebrities. Because if those celebrities don't make enough money through that, then they're on the hook to pay them for their time. So we become deprioritized immediately.
Yeah.
It's a completely, like on paper, the second you unpack it, it's like there is no reason we should be signing up to be part of this system.
Yes, it is. You gotta, again, that mercenary brain is just understand, like, this is the system.
But then you have moments where, and I don't want to name drop the show because I don't think I'm that like as angry as I am and as much shit talking as I've done person to person at the show. I don't want to put it on record in case things turn around magically somehow. We had a recent show that we've done every year since year one. They made the decision to put their biggest name celebrity guests by the front door. And then you had people who were in line outside of the show for 2 to 3 hours to get inside, to get in line with those major celebrity guests for 2 to 3 hours, get those signatures. So we didn't even get the walk-by foot traffic that we've been sold on in the past, because as soon as they got that thing, they turned around and fucking went to get food because they just spent 4 to 6 hours waiting for that one interaction.
Yeah.
So they just screwed everyone over for everything, and then got mad at everyone for being upset that there was no sales or foot traffic happening in the show.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, God, that was a hell of a learning experience.
It was that merc mode on full display at a level that like normally gets masked better.
One of the reasons I enjoyed tabling with you is when things are good, like we have a good fucking time.
Yeah.
Like hanging out with you, especially when Diana can join us.
Yeah.
That makes the event so much more fun to do. The other great thing about tabling with you is when things don't go well. We've got we've got each other to sanity check.
Yeah.
Each other.
Like, am I crazy or no,
right.
You're not crazy.
Right. And my mental leveling up from that weekend was like truly looking at this situation and like, okay, this is what it is. This really is. This has nothing to do with us. We didn't even lose table roulette.
Right.
This is, and we've had shows where it's like, oh, well, we lost table roulette. What are you going to do?
Well, that's another one of those merc things, though, because the fact that there is a bad spot shouldn't happen.
Right.
You can make a floor plan where the flow of traffic doesn't allow for it. It's not that difficult.
Right. But, that really understanding control what you can control.
Yeah.
And that helped ease it a little bit. Like understanding we have nothing to do with improving foot traffic.
Right.
There's zero we can do. What we can do is stay cool, stay personable, stay welcoming. So when that person did come by, we could still give the interaction we want to give. We can still be the people we want to give.
They weren't going to walk up to a gloomy storm by accident and not know why, and then we've ruined their day.
And I wish I could pinpoint exactly where you said this, and maybe you'll remember. It's one of your things that you said during probably a similar-ish situation. It's the Pebble concept that you shared with me, and that like I have held on to and retold over and over and over again.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, absolutely, because it's huge. Because in those situations, we can't change the flow of traffic, right? Like, if we want to go back to that weekend, we can't control the flow of traffic. What we can do, though, is like in that moment, someone comes by, we can do something that makes them skip away. right? Like,
Yeah.
and I have seen you, in some of our worst shows, someone comes up, sees one of your prints, like loses their mind over it, and they love it. And I think even before they can ask how much it is, you just hand it to them.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Are you serious?" Like their face completely drops because this isn't what's supposed to happen.
Right.
And you say no, and I think you've even told people and if I'm paraphrasing incorrectly, please let me know so I can tell this story better.
I mean, after this, I'm going to need to recap what Be the Pebble is, just so anyone listening can get the full concept. So yeah, I'll...
Right. But it's that, and it might be paraphrasing, but I think you have literally told people, look, this has been a rough weekend, but this is going to make you so happy. I want you to have it.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. On a weekend where like $15-20 will actually make a difference.
Right.
You choose, no, I want to send you away on a positive high. We can't control the flow, but we can make people's day more positive.
Yeah, because it hit me because some of the first times we did Baltimore, like there was some table roulette. I still was a little underdeveloped on like what I had to offer. There's nobody coming by, and I'm just getting gloomier. And you and Diana are there trying to like nudge me, and then eventually you guys are just not, because you realize that I'm stewing. At some point it flipped over where I was just like, no, okay, I could be like, the day could be having a bad effect on me, and if I can do anything to change the mood, I can have this one interaction. I can't make the ocean move, but I can throw a pebble, and if that ripple hits just right, I've made this person happy, and then they go have an interaction where they've made somebody else happy, and then that spreads in a way that maybe it builds enough momentum somewhere someday.
And selfishly, I've also watched you lighten up, both mood and face and voice, when you watch them skip away.
Yeah, because now
like
I know that that's the value. I stopped thinking in the merc brain of like, I'm not making money, I'm not selling things, I can't count on paper whether I'm any level of success.
Yeah.
And then once it stopped being on paper, I'm like, oh, I got it.
Yeah, and those become the highlights. Again, going back to this convention, yes, and I have, gone on about how this show just didn't work this year. But I will quickly sum that stuff up so I can talk about the cosplayer who came by and we spent 15 minutes psyching up to get her to the confidence to go meet the artist of the character she was cosplaying.
Yep.
So she could come back in 30 minutes with the biggest goddamn grin on her face. And she got the interaction she was hoping for.
Yeah, and I remember because you coached her quickly. You're like, yeah, just remember that this is where they're coming from, and here's how you don't overthink it, because they're going to be psyched to see you. Once they see you, it's just going to click. And I think what they came back with was that they were seen in line and pulled out and up ahead of time. So it hit exactly the way you told them it was going to.
Yeah. And that's the story I want to tell.
Yeah.
Because that brought me a ton of joy where there was a dearth of joy. So we can again, we talk about it in the convention sense, because again, that's kind of where we spend most of our time, and we have, other than driving to the shows when we have time to talk to each other, we're sitting next to each other for 24 hours. We're talking. We're talking. That's the only way we're gonna get through this.
I mean, honestly, now that I'm reflecting on it, I know I went a little dark during that one bad show recently, and the same show that we're just talking about with the cosplayer.
We both did, yeah.
Yeah, and I went around going to every table and here's why everything's fucked, just so you know this isn't an accident. But I was doing that out of aggression, and it was also out of that community thing, because everyone acts like if a show goes bad, they're not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, right.
How'd the show go for you? Oh, went good. Oh, did you make table? well, no. I'm like, then, wait, hold on. Then I need you to tell me what went good, because
Right.
was
Right.
that like fear. So I would go around, especially like there's a lot of people there for their first year, and this isn't you. You didn't fuck up. You're not
Right.
a bad fit. The people aren't disinterested. Here's all the things that went wrong that you couldn't have controlled, and
Yep.
that these people did on purpose without considering you at all.
Yeah.
Just and it's not the same version of Be the Pebble, but I'm hoping that they took that and like, okay, I'm not the problem. I
Yeah.
don't have to sacrifice confidence for my next decision.
Because so much, like, until you start, like, creating, and maybe it's at a certain level it starts to kick in, how much confidence or self-confidence is tied to creating.
Yeah.
You know, and or maybe that's because like negative self-talk comes up a lot in therapy.
I also think there's part of this is another version of that Dunning-Kruger effect, but like on the actual creative output side of like, you're enjoying creating, but you can't tell until you hit a certain quality level how to measure your quality level.
Right. I mean, especially, again, I started playing guitar because of, Eddie Van Halen and all these other guys. Started making comics because of certain writers, started making, writing scripts because of certain writers. And there's always kind of that, oh man, I'm nowhere close.
Right, that inherent comparison to your inspirations.
Yeah. And it feels, so I'm never going to get there. And there's, and you actually have to learn how to, I'm never going to get there, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like you are on your own journey, and you kind of don't want it to look like anybody else's.
That's the thing.
Because then you're a clone. I mean, baby heavy metal George, came online around, the 80s hair metal. The number of lookalikes that spawned the second, third, fourth wave of heavy metal in the late 80s, like I got to witness that. The people who followed the path of somebody else, they're not remembered, then they're still not around.
There's a whole industry now of people who have succeeded telling people how to succeed.
Right.
But those paths aren't replicatable that way.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes about breaking into comics is someone had said, breaking into comics is like breaking out of prison. Yeah, you can do it, but as soon as they figure out how you got in, they're going to wall it up.
Oh my God, I'm keeping that. That is exactly the concept that I'm trying to pull off on this.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, so, yeah, and it is a different level of thinking and deconstruction of, well, how did that person do it? And getting stuck on the specifics, which you just talked about, right? Like the exact span. And knowing like the right level to pull back on.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so, let's go Motley Crue, the band that is inspired by Motley Crue. Well, how did they make it? Well, they did very specifically XYZ 1 2 3. Oh, we're going to do XYZ 1 2 3. Versus, something a little more intangible of how did they promote themselves? Again, not on the specific, on more on a higher level, right? So you can take the idea, but then mold it to you.
Yeah, you have to mold it to you and to the time, because everything, all those like targets shift as you move up. And if you're picking the target that existed in the 80s, it doesn't exist. It doesn't work the same way.
I mean, and the way everything speeds up, like a year ago, isn't going to work.
Right.
Like something just popped up that kind of made everybody nostalgic for like the wave one of like the big YouTube influencers. The people who have kind of been quieter or pulled back over the last 5 or 6 years, but who, mid-teens were dominating
Yeah.
thing. The world's changed, the game changed, platforms change, algorithms change.
Yeah.
But I think there's some intangibles that no matter what medium or platform you're in, they work.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is very vague, and I don't know if that's useful or actionable,
Well, so the
or
actionable
if it
version
even
of
makes
that,
sense.
the actionable version of it is that no matter what systems are in place, no matter what algorithms are running, all those things, yes, will increase who sees you, no matter what publishers are choosing who gets out there in front of people or what marketing tactics are used. The things that are always going to be universal are mavens, connectors, and sellers. You have those three personality types. You have the people who are obsessed with a type of thing, because it used to be if you were selling a car, especially like a new version of a car that had like features that were abnormal, you'd go to car shows where car mavens show up and interrogate you on all the stuff. Then those people would have like their weekly meeting with their car club people who would all talk about it. And then that word of mouth hits one connector who's like, oh, yeah, no, I got this guy who loves cars. You're looking to buy a car right now. I'll have you talk to him. And then that person starts telling you, you should buy this car. We've been looking into it, and it's got these great features that are coming out. And that trio of social energy, it's just the difference of sometimes it's on Reddit, sometimes it does kick through TikTok with the right influencer. But then as influencer becomes a personality / business instead of like that's what they did out of passion.
Yeah.
Like you just got to keep tracking where the authentic versions of those three people live.
Man, like now we're getting like super super into it, but like authentic, man, that is such a fucking powerful word right now. And look, maybe I'm being over dramatic about it. Maybe some people think that's an incredibly important word, and some people don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But and maybe that ties a bunch of other points that we've been making. Do you want to be the carnival barker that, yes, you sold out, but like,
right,
you didn't make an impact. You didn't make anybody's day better.
Right.
You want to sell half as much, but the chances of them reading your book are so much higher because you made sure that what they got, they would enjoy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, is it about you or is it about me?
Right. Like, did I make this just because I have an ego that needs to be filled? Right. Or am I trying to actually tell a story or make your day or life more rich with perspective or a narrative that you may not come across?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it gets weird because this is art as commerce.
Right.
Or the commerce of art, however you want to put it in there. And I am a creator who is still 7 years old and wants to, like, look at what I made. My stuff is supposed to go on your fridge.
Yeah. I literally went to my friend's party for New Year's Eve, and a portrait I did of her was on the fridge, and I was so derpily excited.
I want you to know, the next time you're at our place, I want to make sure you know that the drawing you did of me, Tracy, Logan, and Bear is on our fridge.
That's amazing. I love that.
And it is right where I see it. Basically, every time I go to get water, and I am trying to drink lots of water, so I see it multiple times a day.
Is that the one? Is that the one I did in the blue lead?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic! I remember that one.
Yeah. Back on topic. But yeah, so I don't make stuff to just like sit on my computer.
Right.
Like, I have had projects that have taken years to get over the finish line. And, one of those ignition switches that keeps getting hit is I gotta get this off my fucking computer. Gotta get it off.
Honestly, I'm having that trouble with the novel because I'm in the middle of rewriting the first one. I still haven't finished the second one because I got 2/3 in, and like a minor character became more prominent. And in my attempt to try to go back and flush them out more so they weren't just this weird Deus Ex character who popped up, I've kind of gotten lost again. But I'm at the point with the first story where I'm like, I just need to like give this to people. I don't even need to sell this. Like I have it. Once I fix the thing that like the friend pointed out to me that I do need to fix, like what am I going to do with this? It's just going to live here and do nothing. Why did I make it then? Like
Right.
the money doesn't matter at that point. Like I'd rather have people read it and get nothing than have nobody read it ever for no reason.
Right. Yeah. Because then at least, because again, you're a creator as well, which means this wasn't the one thing you were going to make.
Right.
That you can take the feedback and learn from it and put it into whatever you make next. One of the yeah.
It's like we're the opposite of the corpo metric of like, well, we finished an entire movie, but we're going to put it into storage so we can have it as a tax write-off because we don't think it'll do well. And we're down here like, I finished this entire thing, but if I give it to you 10 people because I know you like stories and you were interested in this, maybe you come back next time when I have something weirder. Cool. What's up?
It's the grossest fucking thing. And, it's so your bonus can be bigger.
Right?
Like,
it hurts me.
You. Fuck you.
It's always the people without a creative bone in their body who can't understand it that are making these decisions.
Yep. And, I follow a lot of writers on social media, writers and showrunners, and they will keep pointing out, as we now live through the crashing of the streamers.
Yeah.
That, like, you know what? We had a system that worked. Everybody got paid, and the rich people got rich. The system, broadcast television, cable television worked.
Yeah.
But the desire of the few to get more will inshitify something. Yeah.
No, it is depressing because streaming, what should have happened is it should have opened up a lot of smaller projects to have access to an audience, and instead it's gotten more gatekeepy somehow.
Yeah, there some article, a recent-ish article, talking about the shift of like, and maybe it was Netflix, but it really could be any of them, that they don't care about the quality. They just need to hit a certain metric of new.
Right.
To justify having people keep their subscription. Right?
Yep.
So even that of like, all right, you're going to get your shot to tell your story on this platform. But they're not going to promote it. They're not going to,
Right.
They don't care. There's a line on an Excel spreadsheet they need filled in.
Yeah. I'm going to pepper this in. Anyone who's listening might hopefully take this as I could do that, and maybe it'll put pressure on the system. I don't have subscriptions to anything. I sign up for a month because it has a thing I definitely want to watch. And I pay for that month, and I cancel it immediately. It just auto shuts off at the end. I'm going to watch this show. I paid $7 so I could watch this show. I'm going to watch the whole show, and maybe I'll check out some other stuff while I'm here. By week 3, I've forgotten, and I've stopped checking. And then by week 4, it's gone. And then the next thing that I'm like, oh, that's the thing I would like to watch. I'm on a different system being like, okay, let's sign up for this one now for a month so I can watch the new Dune Prophecy series. And I'm going to go into that. And that way, like, none of the rules that they're playing with of, like, trying to keep people in with new stuff work on me. And if everyone did this, or if enough people did this, it would they'd have to change the system on some level. They'd probably do it wrong, but I can hope.
Yeah. It's a bummer. It is a bummer because I'm seeing passionate creators get fucked.
Yeah.
And nothing's better.
Yeah.
Right? And
I also feel like every generation has some version of this too, though. It's just more visible now.
That's true. This has all happened before and it will all happen again. That's
I mean, Motown. Let's go.
Right. Yeah. Oh. So that's what's going on, Griff.
But like, where can I go to keep tabs?
For Vampires on Mars, I think just throw Vampires on Mars into Kickstarter, and then Homeless Comics. That's
right.
That's where I keep all of our stuff. and I've been using that to update.
All right, because you have the mailing list and stuff.
I do. One of my to-dos is being more regular with it. So yeah, the figuring it out on the fly newsletter I'm trying to make sure is going out more often because there are people who actually want to know what I'm up to, which I still have to remind myself is a win. And then yeah, Swarm of Eyes, the band, that EP is getting closer and closer to being done. And so we'll announce all of that stuff on the site swarmofeyes.com.
Cool.
And then I have started to spend more time on Blue Sky these days.
Oh shoot!
And so
I just finally got an account going.
Yeah, so look me up. I'm using my middle initial because there are like 97 George O'Connors in comics.
Yeah.
So it's George.w.O'Connor.
Cool.
On Blue Sky. The next convention you and I are at, we'll just do this all over again, in between trying to sell comics and prints.
Yep.
But my God, will we entertain you?
It's our favorite thing.
We will be the best part of your show. You just don't know it yet.
Fact. Well, as predicted, that was a lot of chatter.
I'm glad to hear that. I got so many emails done.
That's one of those things that kind of came up as the peripheral skills needed to support a creative path of any kind, and like monotony of keeping up with emails, maintaining an actual schedule, parsing out dedicated time for certain things. You're more organized than I am at so many levels. Is this one of them? Or is this one of those things you have to like twist your arm more?
I think it depends on which level you're talking about. If it's the front-facing level of like marketing yourself, I'm not great at that. I think you're better at that than I am. You at least post regularly.
Fair.
If you're talking about the level of like keeping projects clearly organized and creating like step-by-step breakdowns of what needs to happen at what level by who and when, then I am quite good at that, yes. That's what I was doing over there in the corner, is I was making a scene breakdown so that my animator friend knows what they need to animate, and my scriptwriter friend knows which bits are going to be animated so that we can edit the shot list for when we actually shoot in person in a month.
See, you're 4 steps ahead immediately, and I'm so bad at that part. Like, I'm only good at looking ahead that way when I feel something wrong, and I can spot the problem easier than most people seem to be able to. But I have no ability to, like, mitigate that actively through process.
Gotcha.
It kind of frustrates some of the people I've worked under, where they're like, you keep pointing out problems and not solutions. I'm like, I don't have a solution. I just know that's going to be a problem.
Honestly, I'm not sure if I suck at recognizing problems or if I'm good enough at organizing that they don't usually come up.
I feel like that naturally occurs. Like, if you're good at organizing, problems have less doors to sneak in through.
Yeah. There are fewer opportunities for problems to arise, and it's also easier to roll with the punches and make the problems matter less if you have a clearly defined structure for what you're doing already. One of the things that I have built into the calendar for this project, the writer has a hard deadline because he wants to submit to festivals. So as I'm talking to animators and like editors and we're putting it all together, I have set everybody's deadline several weeks before the actual hard cutoff, because we're all students. We all have finals going on at this exact same time. So I need to be able to anticipate somebody's gonna be a few days late, and that's gonna offset somebody else. And it's also a priority for me to be kind and understanding and generous in this.
Yeah.
I never want somebody to feel like they've ruined everything because of circumstances that were out of their control. So while it is slightly more stressful for everybody's deadlines to be a few weeks earlier than they actually need to be, I do that because it saves us all guilt and taking on the responsibility of ruining a whole project. Because nobody's
Gotcha.
actually going to ruin a whole project. But if somebody being a few days late was the thing that pushed us past this deadline,
Right.
they would feel bad. And my
Yeah.
goal is for nobody to feel bad about this.
Yeah, especially like creators in general have a tendency to catastrophize, and it is nice of you to take that functionally out of the equation by being proactive about those.
Yeah. It's also the difference between personal solo projects and group projects. Like, you and I are both good at getting things in under the wire
Yeah,
and getting things done quickly and well at the same time. But that can't always be relied on when other people are relying on you.
right.
So that was something that I had to learn the hard way in high school. Was I was doing a collaborative project. I kept procrastinating my part of it, and I ended up really frustrating and deeply inconveniencing a couple other people I was working with
Ooh,
because of that. And I felt absolutely terrible because these were people I was very close to, and I didn't want to let them down. So that experience of like just the deep shame that like I probably
Yeah.
didn't need to feel as much shame and guilt as I did. It was
Right.
not like that level of it was not productive, but the experience of I let my confidence in my own abilities negatively affect other people, that has stuck with me. And like, okay, my own personal projects, mess around with deadlines all you want because I know that I can get it done. But if I'm working with other people, my deadline is a week earlier than it needs to be.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's when you are used to getting yourself across the finish line very easily at the last minute, and you fuck it up for a group thing. Yeah, I've lugged around the extra excessive amount of strain or guilt that causes because it was fixable. But
It was. It was
Ego.
fixable, and now we learn.
yeah.
And that's part of what we're doing here.
And honestly, I've kind of translated that knowledge into my social life too. Whenever I'm trying to make plans with friends and be like, hey, we haven't talked in a while, let's catch up in person, I'll get somebody who's like, okay, well, we can do like Tuesday or Thursday, or I could do Sunday. And I'm like, okay, well, then let's aim for Tuesday. And if something goes wrong, we have two fallback dates as opposed to like pushing it off to Sunday and then having that not work and having no backup. Like, it just keeps
I have
everything.
experienced this being your friend.
Suppose you would have, wouldn't you? This does kind of fold over into George and I have a different business approach compared to a lot of other creatives that we know, especially working in like conventions and stuff. Is there, you pay for a table, you need to get a return on investment to make it worth your while, and you're kind of competing with the con advertising things that aren't our table because they have celebrity guests who are guaranteed a certain minimum, and if they don't reach that, then the convention has to pay them out of pocket to meet the balance. So we kind of fall between the cracks. So when we have to like want to succeed while hoping that the foot traffic matches our needs and the right people find our table at the right time. And there are some people who are more like aggressively trying to hook anyone walking by in to try to get every transaction possible. And he and I don't have that, and we sort of fucking hate it watching other people do it.
I'm trying to see if that rings true in my own experience.
Well, I'm kind of curious. Like, you spend more time walking the floors. Like, have you had many positive interactions with anyone who's, like, tried to forcibly get your attention on a walk by?
I think it depends on what you mean by forcibly try to get my attention. Because there are people who, um, like, you know, just talk to anybody who walks past and say the same sentence, the same way that I always say, "Hi there, how are you doing this evening?" to any patron who walks into a theater to be seated.
Right.
There are people who say they have, their press A to talk lines.
And then I hit skip. Yeah.
But there are several vendors who I've met at conventions because they did make an effort to talk to me, but they made a personalized effort. Like
Right.
people who compliment what cosplay I'm wearing.
Yeah.
Or people who see that if I'm in street clothes, see that my general aesthetic matches their vibe. And so connections can be made on a level of still a vendor trying to make a sale, but I think there are effective and personal ways to be talking to people trying to get them to stop that are not as cold, impersonal, and scammy as you make it sound. There are also a couple of vendors who I do intentionally seek out.
Yeah.
There's an artist who I've met the past 3 MCM London Comic Cons that I've been to because I love their art so much. I had one of their stickers on my laptop for a couple of years. Like, the sticker got quite worn down. So the next time I was at MCM, I sought out their booth and I said, "Hey, I've had this sticker on my computer for a couple of years. I love it so much. I'm here to buy a new one so that I can put it back and have it be nice and fresh." And because I've had so many lovely interactions with this vendor, they gave me that sticker for free.
I was going to say that had to have made their day, which, yeah.
They gave me the sticker for free. We had a wonderful conversation. It was still important to me that they get money, so I ended up buying other things.
Nice.
And there are also, you've seen it. You've seen the purple and gray sweater that I wear all the time. The Spinner's Court Kefta. And
I love
it's
that
great.
one.
I love it too. I looked at that sweater at every con I went to and online for a year before I decided that it really is actually worth how much money they're charging for it. And
Gotcha.
It absolutely is. I wear that sweater all the time. And every time I have seen them at a con since, I've made a point to go over to the booth and tell them, "Hey, I got this sweater. It was absolutely worth it. I love it so much. You guys are doing great." Because I think it's important to tell people when you appreciate something they're making so that they feel better about continuing to advertise themselves.
Yeah, no. And that's kind of what George and I concurred on for the entire time, is the fact that we appreciate those interactions infinitely more than if we were succeeding at selling more things but not getting those moments. But it's tough to manage. The sense of being authentic as a person while also marketing it doesn't come to everybody. All right, to be a little more empathetic, I feel bad because I do think that people who end up in that merc mode of just browbeating people, they might just not have the social dynamics and have found some way to make it effective, and that's unfortunate that they opted for a script that they could span as opposed to trying to develop the social skills. But I don't know what their stories are. Do you have any cons you're looking forward to in the near future? When are you coming to Boston next?
Fan Expo Boston, my beloved, my home con. I will be there this year. I'm very much looking forward to returning. I felt it. I felt the loss of not being able to go last year. But
and they did shuffle the date, so it did kind of screw it up on you.
Yeah. If they hadn't moved it 2 months early,
yeah,
I would have been there. And I'll be there. I will be at Fan Expo Boston. I think that is the next con I'm going to, unfortunately. My schedule until August is pretty cramped.
No, and I have to be in New York soon, so I'm going to make time to see you. I still don't exactly know how I'm going to make it work, but I have to go see some shows with Bobby for the weekend. And that's the same weekend I'm going to try to get to 20s out of Terran. And I'm taking you with me if that wasn't obvious in my phrasing.
Oh, no, of course you were taking me with you.
I didn't know if I had spelled it out hard enough.
Well, I can hear the big adult job calling my name, so unfortunately, I think I gotta close the laptop and toss my cup in the trash on my way out.
Fair. I'll see you next time.
Sounds good.
Ah, musical interlude.
Do, 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 do. That's definitely how the music sounds.
Yes, exactly like that. I had Bugs Bunny.